Full blade, spinning at the side, dovetail cut, let's go. Plug me in, Pula. In a recent video, I bought the Shopsmith Mark IV, and I thought it was the world's most dangerous woodworking tool, but dozens of you suggested that a radial arm saw is actually just as dangerous or worse. So I bought one and we're gonna test it. Let's go. So I actually found 2 of these on Facebook Marketplace, and hey, don't you look over there. I got this 10-inch one for like 50 bucks, I think. And then the other one was a little more expensive, and I'm pumped to show you guys that one a bit later. But let's fire this thing up, figure out how it works, because I'm super stoked about it. So Sam's gonna give me a hand getting this thing cleaned up and tuned up before we get it running. And I just wanted to talk for a second about why I'm so excited to have a radial in the shop. First and foremost, 10 years ago when I got started building, it was the first saw I bought. 50 bucks on Craigslist, snagged up an old Craftsman, had zero idea what I was doing, fired it up in the shop, and I used it to cross-cut pretty much from day one until I got into a sliding miter saw, that old Bosch you used to see in my old videos. And I'm like most of you guys, and I see an awesome content creator using a tool, and I just want to get the tool and do the same thing they're doing. And unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen Dusty Lumber Company using his radial arm saw to build amazing stuff. So that's got me really fired up to have a radial back in the shop, as well as some of the old school videos that Frank Howarth was putting out about his radial arm saws. That's why I went ahead and got the bigger one. My good buddy Mike Farrington just did an incredible rebuild of a 16-inch radial. And then there's this really awesome guy on Instagram. His name is Jack English Tools or something like that. He's got an old Delta Rockwell that he completely like rebuilt and redid. This thing is insanely gorgeous, and he's doing incredible timber framing style work with it, which gets me so excited. So for all of you that think I go into this with a preconceived negative notion, I'm stoked. Like, I want this saw to be a phenomenal opportunity in my shop to use for whatever I'm building. So we're gonna get this thing tuned up and fired up. Let's see how this 10-inch saw works, and also figure out why the hell people think it's so damn dangerous. So to prepare for this video, me and the team did some basic Google searching, and we were looking for the dangers of the radial arm saw. Get some statistics, you know? People love that stuff, me included. Basically what we found is that the popularity of the radial arm saw has decreased over the last 20 years. And because of that, the metrics I feel like are kind of skewed. You're only looking at a couple hundred injuries a year reported nowadays, compared to say 2003, when there was over 2,300 injuries reported from usage of a radial arm saw. You gotta remember, these things used to be in every damn home ec department across the country, when schools still promoted kids getting their hands dirty, learning functional skills that they could apply in the real world instead of whatever they're teaching nowadays. But I think the tool's awesome and has a lot of awesome potential. And like any tool, it's as dangerous as whatever else you want to pick up in my shop if you're not being safe while using it. The radial, doing some research, has some insane features that I can't believe were ever presented as being safe, that we're gonna try and maybe lay out, probably not test them. You're scared, it's okay. I can see why a lot of people think this is an insanely dangerous saw. If you're looking at it from the perspective of when it was invented in the 1950s, it was supposed to be like the Shopsmith, which was like the end-all be-all of all workshop saws. You could do everything on it. But in order to do some of this crazy stuff, the orientation of the blade and the exposure of the blade, the pressure on the blade, a lot of this stuff got to be really, really sketch. So we're gonna look into some of that, because why the hell not? And if you're looking for some more statistics, or you have any statistics, leave those down below. But we found most of this data on Sawmill Creek's forums, where other people and radial arm saw enthusiasts were chatting about it. So let's dive into this sucker. We got most of like the dust and debris off of it. We're gonna do a little bit of lubricating, because you can see it's kind of stiff. And we know these rollers and stuff in here wear out, so might take this cap off. We'll see. I'm gonna start messing with these arms here. This is the, oh, it's crazy. So this is one of the main features of the tool. As you can see, she will rotate down to 90 degrees. Now, you've got to do some tuning on the tool itself. And like you can see over here, pretty sure this is supposed to be a stop that sets something or other to 90, so that could use some tightening. But I think it also goes this way, which is, to my understanding, this lock. And it wants to turn, like it's really stiff at the back. You can see that play up there. There we go. Get in there. Absolutely incredible. Gotta love that. Right in the mouth. That's better. Oh, how's that make you feel, Sam?
Working man slide. It gets the job done, but it's not like comfort level smooth.
No, it needs to be insanely heavy and those bearings need cleaned up. The only thing that's kind of concerning me is it looks like that lever is for left and right, and we're getting some play. This is a common thing with these, kind of from what I read, is you get a lot of play in these newer models out when the arm's fully extended. Sam's our mechanical man here. And something I unfortunately didn't notice when I bought this is they welded the head so that we can't get the miter to work this way and this way.
That's a bummer. Okay.
It eliminates some opportunities for squirreliness.
I wonder if it pivots right here. Look, you have a pin right here that looks like it hits on those positive stops.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that it's seated on here, and then if we took this off, this whole casing is now welded to this. So this casing's attached to the top, and then the top's attached to this back here. This is just gonna stay at 90. That's what you get. So that'll eliminate anything that's what this was for here, is I could loosen this up front and then spin it to give myself miter cuts. I guess it was a pretty common thing people have done, because you see that like, oh, they welded it all the time. You get it in there, it's leaving white stuff everywhere. You know how we feel about leaving white stuff everywhere. You want to know the best news about this tool I just found? Come look where it was purchased. Your favorite store.
All right, saw sales and machinery. Go down and see Earl for all your saw related news.
No. Hashtag no. Don't go see Earl for anything. Earl is up the street, and it's an awesome little woodworking store, but this Earl guy just hates that I'm an influencer. He's like, why would any company want to work with you? And I said, Earl, I don't know. Why would they? Appreciate Earl. Also, thank you, Earl. Did I just wipe all this off to make it look really nice and then you just put it back on?
No, I don't think you wiped this off. I think whenever you cranked it, a little bit of excess may have trickled out.
Wipe that thing off. Stroke that shaft. Get it clean.
That's what you gotta do someday.
I'm a little bummed about the,
I don't know what we're talking about.
should we put a new spoil board on there?
I suppose so.
No one puts the effort in like Pula does. We're gonna use this blade, and I'm gonna clean it. That's what I feel like we'd all do. This thing's pretty cool, by the way. I thought it was quite gimmicky, but then like it has this little Scotch-Brite pad on the bottom. You can put this magnet on there. Like get a little scrub on the bottom. Maybe something to hold the blade with. Well, this pitch has been on here for years. Can't imagine the guy that owned it would ever clean a saw blade. I don't blame him. This is not a precision tool. It needs precision instruments. Feel any different? I just cleaned up I cleaned up all the slides, I cleaned up all the bearings, I cleaned all the stuff off of it. The only thing that's better is this lock up the bevel on the front. That is working a little better. And we're gonna try them all. We are plugged in. We threw together a little auxiliary fence for safety, you know? Now it's the moment of truth. Will she turn on again? Sounds pretty smooth. Gotta say, she sounds good, Pula. The brake is definitely not working. That does not sound like a brake.
Is this supposed to be slowing down?
Yes. I guess it's like a soft brake. Not like an immediate brake. That doesn't sound too bad. I guess let's make a couple cuts. So what I'm gonna do first is more or less, I'm just gonna lower it into the table so we can get a sense of where the blade lines up, and then we'll square a little fence off of it so we have something to back the piece we're cutting. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get used to that. I guess it's like the table saw though. Like a table saw slows down, not that slow, but it does take a second.
A second, that's...
Also, the table saw will sacrifice its own blade to save your finger.
Ours will.
That'll sacrifice your finger.
You are not wrong, my friend. Since we're welded together here, I can essentially just square off the blade because it's never gonna move. I'm just super pumped that they welded this so I can't move anything out of the way to do anything on it. And now this is just a really rudimentary fence. We're not looking for precision woodwork here, guys. Now we can cut a thing and see how she does. Critical piece of safety. For your own safety, do not feed material into the blade this way. I'm really glad that's on there because I was thinking about it. I'm lying, I was not thinking about that.
You sure about that?
That'll just literally shoot it right off the back of the saw. Hold up, John from the future here. Since filming this, we actually launched our own safety eyewear brand called Shop Shades. They are amazing. I promise you, you're going to absolutely love them. If you want to support Unscrewed and everything we're doing here with this brand new channel, we're not making any money here yet. So grab yourself a pair of Shop Shades. It's the best thing you can do to help support what we are doing here. Now I'm gonna dive in to checking out this huge ass radial arm saw. This thing lacks all the precision.
Really?
Well, look at the blade already. Further you come out, it's already moved off of its original mark. Like this table's bolted down.
Yeah.
That's how much plays in this.
Holy shit, I can just see me move that.
Yeah, holy shit is right. You know, I think that's one of the reasons these lost a lot of popularity is that they're just not that accurate. These cheaper ones. Well, by that I mean the newer non-cast ones. Because how the hell do we stop that, right? Like,
Yeah, because it's moving on this, I think.
it's literally moving where they welded it. Nothing I like more than welding up a brand new to me tool. Okay, let's try this. I've got a chunk of wood and a saw that supposedly cuts it. Great news, I can only cut it on the left side. So that's one of the drawbacks on these radials here is you only get this much clearance on the right side. And then I can't extend, like if I wanted to say extend this over to here, I really couldn't, right? The piece itself, it's gonna hit all this stuff. You're limited in the height of the motor from the table. So you can't do big stuff with this little 10-inch saw. Even though you would think a 10-inch blade, you know, should give you at least 3 inches of cut. That might be 3 inches. That's what you get on a table saw. It's about 3. So let's get something smaller. I was really looking forward to that. You know, it made a pretty good cut. We're pretty square. And like I said, I didn't really set this up. But for like, this is only 1 3/4 material. And like you saw the saw, it bound like coming into it. And so the option is going to be to like score it or make multiple passes. Like in the way this thing goes up and down, it's kind of a pain. So I can easily see why this little 10-inch saw lost its popularity, right? It has no balls. No balls! Between that and then this deflection here, you know, it's a bummer because the saw should inherently do what's asked of it, you know? But I'm not going to discredit it because I do think there's something cool we can still do with it. And that's run a dado stack on it, which I definitely want to try because it looks awesome. I'm going to be safe though and unplug it. So most dado stacks are actually 8 inches. And so that's what I have here, which is going to give us even less throw underneath the motor head. We're not going to be able to do anything really too big. But that being said, I'm still pretty pumped about it. This is what I see majority wise. Anyone that's running these in their shop still is running them with a stack on it. So what are we thinking? 1/2-inch stack? For what I'm trying to do here, we should be good. So I got this old Marple stack. Couple rules of thumb here for you children. 1, your nut should have a thread always protruding. It should at least be flush. If you can't get this washer on, you're better off having the nut going directly against the blade. 2, the cutter knives here when you're installing a dado stack should always be offset. They should never be like next to each other. Those tend to move when you tighten. Offset, these are all offset. None of the blades are touching. That one's a little close. So like that's what you don't want. You can see easily how this can get dangerous. Like look at this thing. A lot of people aren't running these with blade guards. I remember at my old shop, they had a sign company and they would do real estate signs, and to cut the post notches for all the real estate signs, they just had one of these sitting outside under a shed that they just had a dado stack on it. And there's a dude just got paid to stand there and do this all day. Blades completely exposed. Anything loose gets caught in that, it's ripping your face right down into it. That's like the big reason people think this is dangerous. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit intimidated right now, just a little bit. And this is where like people come in, look like you're such a bitch. Be like, yeah, sorry for liking my limbs. Something you've seen that's pretty cool is like Dusty Lumber is cutting what's called tenons on this thing all the time. Ow. So you'll see something like this. This would be the thing I'm going to use it for the most if we decide that it's not going to be the worst tool in my shop. So you can hog out a lot of waste like out here pretty quick with this. And it's a little bit faster than a table saw, but it's the same concept. Setup wise, I can bring the tool directly to it. See where that bottom tooth comes down? And then just adjust the height of my saw. Now I can get a stop here to create a repeatable cut every time. And we're hogging. Grab your nuts. Here we go. Safety third. That went pretty damn good if you ask me. You're looking at a nice tenon fit. Don't forget, I drew those with my finger. And you can come back, do similar setup on the side here. It's funny because there's literally no lock on this. All in all, I think this is the best use of the tool, in my opinion, is like cutting tenons or cutting something repeatable like this. I like the dado stack. It's not perfect. It still needs cleaned up by hand, but if you cut it in with that intention, I definitely think it could help a beginner cut mortise and tenon joints, you know, quicker with a lot of confidence if you're okay with that blade spinning at you. You can do the same thing on the table saw very easily, just putting a dado stack in and a cross-cut sled. Something to also keep in mind if you want to run a dado stack on this, much more manageable to bring the tool to the work if you got really long pieces, right? Say you're doing some timber framing and you want to cut a tenon, it's going to be easier to set up, you know, something to hold that big piece of wood all the way out there instead, and then move the saw blade to it instead of moving that whole big chunk of wood to the table saw. So if you're wondering why the hell would someone ever want to do that, more or less that's going to be why. I personally think that's what I would get, you know, a lot of use out of this in, is some bigger traditional joinery. Go grab a digital angle finder, please. Now is where the squirrely stuff starts to come in. So I've got the regular blade back in, and this is something that I found when I saw it on the internet. I was baffled. What the hell? We're gonna start out, before I do anything, by setting the stop block here. And I mean, this is exactly like I said to you guys at the beginning of the video. Just like you, I'm gonna bring a tool home like this, and I'm gonna do exactly what I'm seeing guys do on the internet. Why? Because that's the point, right? 0. An interesting feature of this saw, or a radial arm saw, is the ability to bevel. I can take this saw and I can turn it on its end and bevel it, right? That gets scary quick, like, don't get me wrong. I don't know really what I'm gonna do with it. And I've seen Dusty Lumber do some rad shit at this angle, and I mean, it's almost perfectly 90. Here's what I'm looking for though. I got a 7-degree dovetail right here that I wanna try to cut, which he does on video. I don't know another way to do this without a digital angle finder. I'm gonna pull this out, try to get this sucker to 7. Oh, there's 8, still 8, damn it. 1 degree, come on. Oh, this sucks. I'm trying to get pretty precise here. Okay. This is how we cut it, right? In reality, I should be able to make this cut. It don't make no sense. Yep, there it is. Oh, he's got blocks everywhere to stand as far away from it as possible. And I don't necessarily hate him for it. Okay, let's get another block to put here. For me, this is a really cool application of the tool, even though I'm terrified. We're getting into some of the squirrely stuff now, and this is like, you know, if you look back in the day when they invented this thing in the 50s, this was suggested usage of the tool. I don't hate it. You can just easily see how it can get sketched. Can I?
You got a screwdriver?
No, because I got to take it off. Give me the squeeze, please. I just hate, see how freaking close that is to start?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, so now there ain't nothing to it but to do it. Full blade, spinning at the side, dovetail cut, let's fucking go. Plug me in, Pula. It's interesting, when I get to me, you can really feel that saw wants to just shoot out, right? You can like feel it in there. So it's one of those things you're like, you've gotta be in like extreme control of that blade as it's coming at you. So going back to like, you know, is this good for a beginner? I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. This is a good way to cut these. And I've got a project coming up that we're gonna need to cut these that I was gonna build a jig to like stand at 8 feet tall on my table, but this might be it, Pula.
Best part about this saw, whenever the blade's spinning, you have time to read a long novel while you wait for it to stop.
Yeah, you do. You sure do. So like, that's pretty impressive, Sam. I mean, like, that is not a bad dovetail. It's perfect. I mean, straight off the saw. The only other way you could cut that is typically standing up out of the table saw. You know, you're gonna set up a jig to cut that thing. So the shoulder's not perfect, but that's the easiest thing to clean. It's this shoulder that gets difficult. I kind of like it. I don't know, man. I'm digging it. She's not precise, but I like her. Let's do one more cut. There's this other insane cut I'm dreading. Pull it up. So far, I'm pretty impressed with the versatility of the saw. I didn't use it like this when I first got started. This was all I was doing, it was just right here. The dust collection, I don't really know about it, but there are some capabilities of this saw that are a little bit on the sketchy side. This one, because of the welding and some other things, you can't really see them. So it's time to break out the big guns. So I mentioned at the top of the video that I got 2 of these, and the second one is this guy. This is a 14-inch DeWalt, and it's got a much bigger blade, and I found it being sold by a local guy here. It came with this. a manila envelope, and a Maxwell House container full of stuff. It's got the original DeWalt badges. It was made in Lancaster, PA, which is awesome because I'm in Pennsylvania. Serial number 68826. Model GR. Do we know the year? I think it's a 65. Model GR. It has a power feed which is awesome. Sam's looking up the year, but more or less, this is how most of these tools are showing up to people. And this is where I think, if you watch Stumpy Nubs' video, why some people just aren't fans of these saws. Let me show you a few things. First and foremost, the owner that I bought this off of has this thing directly wired to the motor. And if you don't know what that means, it means it has no switch. You plug it in, it comes on. The only way to turn it off is to unplug it. Oh, hell no! Ridiculous, right? And in my opinion, not very safe. Before we get this thing running, we're gonna actually fix the whole switch and wiring mechanism. But when I talk about these tools and I talk about them in regards to safety, if it's showing up like that and you've got someone just plugging it in and it's turning on, that's pretty unsafe. I mean, it could easily put this in why this is in the category of potentially woodworking's most dangerous tool. So someone redid this saw a while back, and there's a bunch of like cool features on it. Unlike the other saw, this one actually has the mitering option. Not only is it gigantic, but the head easily swings left and right. And this thing is heavy, super heavy. It's got these detents. Supposedly that's where 90 is. They had to put a new bolt in on this side, which is super cool. It runs really heavy, like really heavy. So we're gonna have to lube this sucker up pretty good. When we get all the way out here, the whole table's moving, not the saw head like on those smaller saws. So these big cast iron saws are a lot more rigid. Where things start to get squirrely, why over the life of this tool people have started to consider it to be the most dangerous tool ever and a total finger chopper, is for a multitude of reasons. One, in the manual when this thing came, they advocated for using it as a rip saw, which means that you turn the saw head, which I think we can do. Oh, I don't know what happened. Yeah, that's what sets that, okay. But I'm pretty sure I should be able to loosen this here. Oh, that needs some lube. This will change the there's like a knob over here. That'll change the forward orientation of the saw blade, right? And so for ripping, they suggested you could use the saw like this. You bury it down into the table and you actually feed from the opposite side like you're on a table saw. Okay, not that big of a deal, right? I'm not that comfortable with it, but check this out. When I saw this, my mind was completely blown. And I don't know, okay, so look at some of these cuts on here. You've got the ripping that I just showed you, the miter, cross-cut as its normal function. Then you're getting into bevel cuts, which we already did on the little guy, not that bad. But the double mitered bevel, now you're getting a lot of pressure on a lot of exposed blade. Then moving into a bevel rip, they advocate for plowing, rabbiting, which is going to be having the blade completely exposed and against the material surface, cutting a rabbet, ridiculous. You could put a shaper head on this thing as well as routing capabilities, which is ridiculous. Last thing on there is sanding. Now, it's not in this manual, but in some manuals that you find on the internet, and I didn't know this until I saw Stumpy Nubs' video. There are certain years of the saw that they advocated for taking the saw, running it in this orientation at the end of the table, and then vertically running a sheet across it to rip a wide board that was too wide based on the arm that holds the cutter head. So more or less, you are going to be feeding a blade with this running right at your stomach. Might not have been the reason people were losing fingers, but I think that is a little bit pushing it in regards to ridiculous usage of this tool. Like they built the shopsmith to beat this. How terrifying is just having a blade exposed at your gut and you're just like, cool, like there's visual graphics out there, people doing it.
Just the fact that you said this is what replaced the shopsmith, I feel like someone else is going to come out of the woodworks that's...
Oh dude, I know there's an arm, and don't get me wrong, I love this tool. I think this is awesome. We're gonna get this thing working and we're gonna put it in the shop. We might do a full out miter station and a full rebuild on this sucker Mike Farrington style. But as a 10-year experienced woodworker, that I can suggest one of these, the bigger guys, like the 14 or 16 inchers, to a beginner woodworker. I would say stick to a 10 or a 12. I mean, you can get into that little Delta one for like 50 bucks. Use it for cross cuts, maybe for dado cuts on the crosscut, maybe miter cuts. That's about it. I wouldn't really push it too much further. You can easily see how it's dangerous. You lose track of where your hand is one time, you're pulling that thing right over your fingers. I think that's why they're no longer in schools and you don't see them around as much.
2 weeks later.
I have wonderful news. We got this sucker running. Sam actually took this thing apart, cleaned it up, got it running real smooth. So we have some great action. It's pulling back and forth really, really nice. I actually even used it on my workbench to cut the dovetail. It was awesome. And it did all the functions that I kind of wanted it to do. So to show you some of those features, before I turn it on, because we did get it obviously turning, we greased up and lubed up here. So like the column, it's really sturdy, and you can see nothing moves except for the base, and like the whole thing moves, which is pretty cool. A couple things that suck, you have to turn it back here, so you have to have access to get around it in order to get it to go up, which I didn't kind of think about and I don't love. But the build of the tool itself was pretty awesome. It's got a lot of brass, a lot of cast, therefore it was like easy to fix. So for me, I looked at it and I was like, okay, let's see if any of these functions that we like work. I took this front apart here and I was actually able to loosen it up, and you can kind of see that thing is so heavy it just drops. But I got this whole front end working really nicely. It's actually quite a pleasure and kind of fidgety to play with, which I think is awesome about these old tools. Can turn this now to all the way down to 90 degrees. Have to take the dust guard off. And I can also pop this one here, and pulling this lever off, I can easily turn the head to then move forward and do some of the most dangerous cuts that you could possibly conceive. Imagine that, spinning at your belly. All the gearings and stuff work really nice. It's quite pleasant to work. I'm really looking forward to having an old tool like this in the shop. I will say this, after putzing around and working with it a little bit, motor does not have a lot of power. I'm gonna throw this guard back on. We're gonna fire it up, I'm gonna show you. It's kind of disappointing because we got this huge 14-inch blade barely cutting the walnut. Now I know if I was to sharpen the blade and probably tune up a couple other things, it would be okay, but we don't have any specs on the motor. There's no plate on it. So if you have any information, please let us know. If you have a suggestion for a motor, that'd be awesome. Because right now we don't got much. We wired up a switch, so once I hit it, she does turn on, which is awesome. Takes a minute. And then the worst part about it, when I turn it off, we just sit there and let that sucker spin for, I think Sam timed it at like 98 seconds. I didn't think that one through for the whole demo. All right, after 2 minutes, it's finally done spinning down, which I will say, in the argument of like the world's most dangerous tool, having a blade that's just spinning, if you're wearing ear protection, you got people walking around, you know, garments and stuff swinging out, that is insanely unsafe. So it definitely doesn't bode well to the tool being safe. But let's make a few cuts, kind of show you guys what's going on. Turn it back on. The old motor. We thought it was 220, it's only 110, and obviously it's seen better days. We're thinking about replacing it if we can. But you see how it's like, it can barely get through a 2x4. It actually blew the breaker. So we still need to tune it up a little bit more. I can't wait to use it. I definitely think we should upgrade the spindle motor for sure. If you guys have any information on anything like this, please let me know, because I love the tool. I think it's awesome. It's going to be great in our shop, but she just is not up to snuff. If you're a beginner and you want to get into woodworking, find one of these on Facebook or something and it's used at a good price. I don't say no, don't buy it, but just be very, very careful because it can be dangerous. Hit that subscribe button because we're going to be banging out videos on this brand new channel for yins, and let me know what tool you'd like to see me buy and then figure out on my own, just like you guys would, for the next one.